A swimmer stands on the south bank of a river and wants to reach the point directly across. So she aims straight north, perpendicular to the bank, and swims with all her strength. Simple, right? Watch what the river has to say. This blue arrow is her own effort, pointing straight across to the far bank. But the water is moving. The current adds its own push, this umber arrow, carrying her downstream every single second she's in the river. So here's the question, where does she actually end up? Not straight across. Her real path is the two arrows combined, tip to tail. She lands here, well downstream of where she aimed. That gold arrow is what we call the resultant, what you get when you combine two quantities that each carry a direction. These are vectors, and learning to add them properly is the whole story today. Welcome to Vectors. Vectors. Some quantities in physics need just a number, your mass, the temperature, the time on a clock. But a huge number of them carry a direction as well. Which way is the force? Which way is the wind? Which way did it move? For those, a single number is not enough, and that's exactly what a vector is for. By the end of this lecture you'll be able to add them, break them into pieces, and even multiply them into completely different ways. Let's begin with the one idea that sets a vector apart. Physics sorts its quantities into two families. A scalar is fully described by a single number with a unit, 30 degrees, 2 kilograms, 5 seconds. Nothing more to say, ordinary arithmetic just works. A vector is different. It needs a size and a direction together. Saying you drove 40 kilometers isn't enough. 40 kilometers which way? North? East? That direction is part of the quantity itself. And here's a property that surprises people. A vector doesn't live at one spot on the page. As long as you don't change its length or its direction, you can slide it anywhere, it's still the very same vector. Watch, same length, same tilt, 3 different places. Physics treats all of these as identical. That freedom is exactly what lets us add vectors by sliding them around, which is the next thing we'll do. Let's add two vectors by hand. Here is the first one, A, 3 units across, 1 unit up. Now the rule. To add B, don't start it at the origin, start it at the tip of A, place them head to tail, like two legs of a journey, one after the other. The sum, the resultant, is the single arrow that goes from the very start to the very end. From the tail of A all the way to the tip of B, that gold arrow is a plus B. Vector addition obeys two friendly laws. You can swap the order, A plus B equals B plus A. And you can regroup as you like. The resultant comes out the same no matter how you slice it. And subtraction is no new idea at all. Minus B is just B pointing the opposite way. So a minus B means, reverse B, then add it the usual tip-to-tail way. One caution before we move on, you may only add vectors of the same kind. Two displacements, fine. Two velocities, fine. But a displacement plus a velocity is meaningless, like adding 12 meters to 21 seconds. Quick check before we leave. If A is 3 meters and B is 4 meters, how big can the resultant be? Largest when they point the same way, 7. Smallest when they fight head-on, just 1. Direction changes everything. Drawing arrows is lovely, but for real calculation we want numbers. So we lay the vector on a set of axes and ask, how much of it points along x and how much along y? Those two pieces are its components. Watch the vector cast two shadows. Straight down onto the x-axis, that teal piece is the x component. Straight across onto the y-axis, that violet piece is the y component. The vector and its two shadows form a perfect right triangle. And the right triangle hands us the formulas immediately. The x component is the length times cosine of the angle. The y component is the length times sine. Cosine for the adjacent side, sine for the opposite, exactly your trigonometry. Now here's why the shadows are worth watching. As I rotate the vector, look how the two components breathe. Point it more upward and the violet y shadow grows while the teal x shadow shrinks. The total length never changes, it just redistributes between the axes. And the trip runs both ways. Given the two components, Pythagoras rebuilds the length, and the inverse tangent of y over x rebuilds the angle. Components to arrow, arrow to components, freely, in either direction. But beware one classic trap. Your calculator's inverse tangent only ever answers in 2 of the 4 quadrants. So always sketch the vector first. If the signs of the components place it somewhere the calculator's angle doesn't match, add 180 degrees. The drawing is always the referee. Here's a small idea with big payoff. A unit vector is a vector whose only job is to point. Its length is exactly 1, and it carries no units, it is pure direction. We give names to the 3 that point along the axis. I hat points along x, j hat points along y. And out of the page, toward you, comes k hat along z. The little hat is the signal, this one has length 1. Now any vector at all becomes a tidy sum. Take its x component times I hat, plus its y component times j hat, plus its z component times k hat. This arrow, 4 across and 3 up, is simply 4 I hat plus 3 j hat. The components are the numbers, the hats just remember which way each piece points. This is the method you'll use every single day. Forget the protractor, once vectors are in component form, adding them is almost too easy. Here are A and B, placed tip to tail, with their resultant in gold. Watch the bookkeeping. The x components, 4 and 1, simply add to 5. The y components, 1 and 3, add to 4. That's the whole secret, you add vectors by adding their components, one axis at a time, completely independently. So the recipe is always the same 3 moves. Resolve every vector into components. Add the components axis by axis. Then recombine, either leave the answer in I hat, j hat form, or convert back to a magnitude and an angle. And subtraction is the same trick with a minus sign. For a minus b, just subtract the components instead of adding them. Nothing new to learn. Here is the deep reason physics is written in vectors at all. I'm going to keep this blue arrow absolutely fixed, it never moves. What I'll change is the coordinate system underneath it. Now watch the components as I rotate the axis. The numbers are dancing, the x component and the y component change at every angle. And yet the arrow itself. Same length, same direction, completely untouched. That's the whole point. The components depend on your choice of axis, but the vector, its real, physical magnitude and direction, does not. The relationships between vectors are true in every coordinate system at once. And that is why the laws of physics are vector equations. One compact statement like R equals A plus B secretly stands for three-component equations, and it stays true no matter how you tilt your axis. Coordinate independence, captured in a single arrow. There are three different things people mean by multiplying with vectors, and none of them behaves like ordinary multiplication. First, the gentle one, a vector times a plain number, a scalar. Multiplying by a positive number just stretches or shrinks the arrow twice the number, twice the length, same direction. Multiply by a negative number and it also flips around to point the opposite way. Length scales, direction either stays or reverses. That's all. Second, the dot product, and this one is strange, because two vectors go in but a single number comes out. Geometrically it's the length of A times the length of B times the cosine of the angle between them. Think of it as how much of one vector lies along the other. This green shadow is B projected onto A. When the vectors are nearly aligned, the projection is long, so the dot product is large. Swing B up toward a right angle, and the shadow collapses. At 90 degrees, the dot product is exactly 0. In components, it's just as clean. Multiply the matching components and add them up. And it's symmetric. A dot B equals B dot A. You'll meet this product first as work, force along a displacement back in chapter 7. Third and last, the cross product, and now two vectors give back a brand new vector. Its size is a times B times the sine of the angle. And there's a gorgeous picture for that. It is exactly the area of the parallelogram the two vectors sweep out. Now sine behaves the opposite way to cosine, so this is the mirror image of the dot product. When the vectors line up, the parallelogram is squashed flat, 0 area, 0 cross product. Open them to a right angle and the area is largest. Parallel gives nothing, perpendicular gives the most. And which way does the new vector point? Perpendicular to both, straight out of the plane the two arrows lie in. The right-hand rule fixes the sense. Point your fingers along A, curl them toward B, and your thumb shows the direction. This circle with a dot means it's pointing out toward you. Because the curl has a handedness, order matters here. B cross A points the opposite way, it's the negative of A cross B. You'll meet this product as torque, the twisting effect of a force, in chapter 11. Let's put it to work. A plane is spotted 215 kilometers away, in a direction 22 degrees east of due north. How far east is it, and how far north? We take x as east and y as north. Now just resolve. The east component is 215 times cosine 68, about 81 kilometers. The north component is 215 times sine 68, about 199 kilometers. So the plane is roughly 81 east and 200 north of us. One sighting, to clean numbers. Second one, adding three vectors at once, given in unit vector form. Don't panic at the count, the recipe doesn't change. Stack up the x components, 4.2 minus 1.6 plus nothing, that's 2.6. Then the y components, minus 1.5 plus 2.9 minus 3.7 minus 2.3. If you want it as a magnitude and angle, Pythagoras gives about 3.5 meters, pointing roughly 41 degrees below the positive x-axis. Three vectors in, one tidy arrow out. Last one, and a beautiful use of the dot product, finding the angle between two vectors. First, the magnitudes, A is 5, B is about 3.61. Then the component dot product, 3 times minus 2, plus the rest, gives minus 6. Now rearrange the geometric definition. Cosine of the angle is the dot product divided by the two lengths. That's minus 6 over 18, and the inverse cosine gives about 110 degrees. Notice the dot product came out negative. That alone already told us the angle had to be obtuse, more than 90 degrees. Let's gather the whole chapter in one breath. A scalar is just a number, a vector adds a direction. You add vectors tip to tail, or far more easily, by their components. You resolve with cosine and sine, and write everything cleanly using the unit vectors I hat, j hat, and k hat. And the two products are mirror images of each other. The dot product uses cosine, returns a plain number, and dies when the vectors are perpendicular. The cross product uses sine, returns a whole new vector pointing out of the plane, and dies when they're parallel. Remember that contrast and half of vector algebra is reflex. Two facts to carry everywhere: a zero dot product means perpendicular, a zero cross product means parallel. Those two shortcuts will rescue you in problem after problem. Master these arrows now, because next we let things move in 2 and 3 dimensions, and position, velocity, and acceleration all become vectors at once. Same rules, richer motion. If vectors finally clicked today, subscribe, and I'll see you in chapter 4.